All right, episode 5 of the Saturday Morning Stoa. And the theme for today is going to be strength through self-discipline. I've been thinking about this one a lot. I think that most men in general lack self-discipline. And in the meeting today, Tristan, I wanted to kind of figure out why that is. I have a rough idea, but I want to get your input as to what you think the reason for the lack of self-discipline. And I know that we both experience that. I think everyone does. It's quite normal. But
Hmm.
that'd be one of the main missions for this meeting. But before we get to that, I wanted to check in with you for last week's challenge. I know we talked about identifying something in our life that's been stressing us out or causing us overwhelm. And I know that you talked about, not worrying about your body and basically taking care of the small habits to, get to your goal as far as, losing weight or gaining muscle. How'd you manage with your challenge for last week?
Oh, it was good. Yeah, it was not just like the physical stuff, but also like not doing but basically it's like dopamine detox. So like don't watch those YouTube channels anymore. Like, don't get distracted on social media. Like just kind of eliminate those things
Mhm.
as well. And so yeah, I can see it working. The problem is it's like I get kind of anxious or antsy and um sort of bored, but that's a good thing because it's like part of the reset process, and I can turn that into yeah, doing other things. But like yeah, I'm happy with my progress. It's not perfect, of course, but it's moving in the right direction.
Excellent. And then that's all you want, right? You just want consistency. You're not looking for perfection, just day-to-day habits. And I've done a dopamine detox before, and it was tough. You don't realize how many things you're reliant on every single day, right? You have a little lull where you're not doing anything and it's boredom. It's, oh, pick up my phone, start going through social media. And after a while, it just becomes like autopilot. You don't realize you're doing it.
It's
Then you
trigger.
start to wake up and go, oh, wait, I don't need to be doing this. I'm just filling in this gap in time. All right.
Yeah, I was watching some interviews about addiction,
Mhm.
mainly the P word, adult videos,
Yep.
because that's a good representation of all addiction, because all addiction is basically the same. And yeah, he's like, once you like when you do something that you become addicted to, your brain subconsciously remembers the triggers that led up to that event. And then whenever you see those triggers again, you just without even thinking about it, you're doing your addiction, right? So it
Yep.
doesn't have to be adult stuff, but it could be like if you open up your closet or not your closet, like your cupboard, just the act of opening your cupboard makes you want to eat chocolate,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So, or you see your cupboard, I need to eat chocolate now. I need to just go and eat chocolate. It's like, what are you doing? You're not even thinking. Like, you're not even, are you even alive? Right?
Yeah.
And so that really struck home with me. I'm like, hey, that's right. Like, I've noticed that. Like, if I do a certain thing, if I see my phone, is like, do I have to scroll through Facebook now? Like, no, I don't.
No.
So I've
Yeah.
been trying to be more aware of those triggers and, consciously controlling my actions rather than just, I don't even know what you would call that, just
Yep. The impulse
forces,
control, really,
yeah,
what it
unseen
is.
forces controlling me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've done that so many times. How many times I've opened up the fridge, my wife would be like, "What are you doing?" I honestly don't know. Are you hungry? No. It's like, well, why are you doing that? Something in your brain is telling you, "Oh, open the fridge. You want chocolate, or you want this, you want that." So yeah, it's just about being aware of that kind of impulse control, right? And
Mhm.
getting ahead of those because I do that so often, and that's really one of those things I'm trying to focus on. Is just identifying those impulses and trying to replace them with a better habit. And I find that with the community and scrolling on Instagram, which I have a bad habit of, at least if I can be productive about that, if I can find inspiring videos that I can share with the community or share with my Instagram, at least I'm now becoming more of a producer as far instead of a consumer of
Mhm.
these things, going, hey, this would be a good message I can give to my team, but only using it for that purpose, not just mindlessly scrolling and getting a laugh or sharing this with friends. So I think that comes down to really, the topic of this lesson, which is about self-discipline, right? And I think that it's really the root of freedom. I really do. And when we talk about the self-discipline, I want to get your opinion on it. I don't know. I have a rough idea, but I'm wondering why self-discipline is such a hard thing for people. And I wanted to get your opinion on why you think that is. And I know everyone's struggled with it before, but What do you think's the main driving factor between, someone who's disciplined versus undisciplined?
I think there's more than one. So
Yeah,
if someone says if there's one thing that's not true,
yeah,
but part of it is like our parents. So back in our parents' time, probably, and their parents' time, it was like very strict and lots of spankings and stuff, right?
hmm,
And so it's like forced discipline. Whether that's good or not, I don't know. But today it's more like you can kind of do whatever you want to do, and there's a lot of a lot of change there anyway.
yeah,
And then another part of it is I think dopamine, and it's like I'd rather just consume social media than actually do something useful,
yeah,
like because you get that instant gratification. So that whole trillion-dollar industry there of games and adult content and
hmm,
whatever else, right? And then another thing is people don't really like I think it's just something to do with my cat something to do with agency. So
yeah,
like how do I say it? We've been trained to believe that we get what we get. We have no control over our
hmm,
lives
yep,
for the most part.
yep,
And so why bother trying anything? Like if I'm 7 years old and I'm not good at singing, that means I'm not ever going to be a singer and I'll never be good at singing.
yep,
But why? Like, like just because you're not born with it naturally doesn't mean you can't do it. I mean, most singers train. I mean, virtually all train, right?
absolutely.
So same with golf. Like some people can move their body a certain way, just
Hmm,
like and that's called talent
yep,
because you're just born with it, but most people have to learn how to do that, right?
work
So,
hard on
but
it.
most people don't realize that they like just because you're not born with a natural gift of that doesn't mean you can't develop it over time,
Yeah, exactly.
right? And so they just say, well, I can't do that, I can't draw, I can't sing, I can't do this, so I'm just gonna work at Walmart for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I mean, you gotta do something. And then discipline usually requires effort, and people just don't want to do any effort.
yeah,
And then also, uh, self-discipline usually implies that you're doing something good for yourself
yeah,
or gonna grow,
hmm,
and that gets out of your comfort zone. So you face resistance, and resistance
all the
just shuts
time.
people down. So, like,
Yep,
people are so afraid of any kind of resistance. Like, I know people who will try something, and as soon as like a single thing happens, it's like, oh, I can't do it. I give up. I can't. I just can't do it.
yep,
It's like, what?
yeah,
So, like, oh, I got this one question wrong. I can't do math. I'm terrible at math. Like, what are you talking about? Right? So
yeah. You just
it's like,
started.
yeah, it's like, oh, I don't know what 5 times 12 is, so I can't do math. Like, well, learn 5 times 12. Learn, you know. Uh, so yeah, people face resistance and they give up and they just sit in front of the TV all day. So
I like that.
I think those are all the ones that I could think of anyway of self-discipline. It's just effort, comfort zone, resistance, lack of training, not even awareness of what self-discipline is, or not understanding that you can control your life if you do something about it, right?
Absolutely. No, I think you're right. And the first point you said, right, it's not just one thing. But if I had to pick one kind of overarching theme, I would say that it's having a solid why. I think
Oh,
that
that
you're
too, yeah.
right. You're absolutely right about, your parents, how you're bringing up, having that sense of agency, that hope, um, and then feeling resistance and having to work through that. And I think a lot of these are rectified by having a solid why and remembering that. I think that's a majority of it where people are so lost today where they just don't know what they want. There's so many things you can take, so many different avenues as far as business, relationships, life, spirituality. If you don't have that solid why that's rooted in your own beliefs, whatever they may be, I think that's very hard to get past all these things as far as resistance, having hope, right? Breaking habits that were instilled in you from when you were born. So I really think that, having a solid why and remembering it on a daily basis helps with self-discipline. And I think that's one of the main things that stops people from being disciplined on a daily basis. But I think the one thing that stood out for me was that the agency that you said. People just think that they don't have options,
Mhm.
right? Like as far as their life conditions, whatever the case is, it's just this is what I'm dealing with. There's no other way to get out of it. But it's funny when you look at kind of the traditional, lower class, middle class, upper class, you'll see more millionaires out of the lower class than you will out of the middle class. And the reason being is in the middle class, majority of your needs are met, so to speak. You have a comfortable life. So as far as having agency to get out of that, you don't really see a necessity to do so. Whereas a lot more people in lower class, and most of them stay where they are in lower class, but a good majority that actually have that agency to think about, hey, I can get something better for my life. I can provide for my family. They get out of that and they end up becoming millionaires. And it's funny, when you have comfort in your life, you usually stay where you are,
Hmm.
right? And that's for most people. Unless you want more for yourself or your why, why you're doing this, why you want to grow, then you're able to face that resistance. You're able to have that hope and you're able to break those patterns, like you said, from your parents to move to that next level. So no, that's awesome. What was you said here, you said parents, hope, I can't remember the other one here, and then resistance. But those are good points. I'll have to read this back afterwards.
Natural talent or something. Like if
Yes,
if I'm
that's what
not
it
born
was.
with it, then I can't develop it. So why bother
Yes,
trying?
exactly. No, for sure. And I really think that self-discipline is it's not about restriction. A lot of people think, oh, if you're disciplined, you're getting rid of all these things in your life. I think that with self-discipline, it gets rid of all the fluff and all the distractions
Hmm.
in your
That's
life,
what I agree. Yeah, because
right?
you just replace. Yeah, I call it sacrifice.
Yep,
Like you're replacing things of a lower nature with things of a higher nature. Right.
absolutely.
That's how I look at it.
Yep. Yeah, for me, it's about liberation, right? And I
Hmm.
think when you're sacrificing those lower things for those higher things, you're getting to that. You're being that higher self. But that comes with again having a strong why and knowing kind of what priorities you have in your life. And I think self-discipline. When we talk about our Stoic virtues of courage, temperance, justice, and wisdom, I think discipline is really the glue or like the foundation for all those virtues, right? If we're talking about courage, you have the discipline to face discomforts head on. If you're talking about temperance, right, you have the discipline to resist indulgences and distractions, which is a big one for sure, especially in today's day and age. For justice, discipline to do what's right, not what's easy, and that's a pretty tough one. That's another one as well. As I think people don't like confrontation nowadays. If you're confronting someone or if you have to go through that confrontation, people usually just shell up and they'll just okay, fine, you're right, and then move on. So having discipline there is huge. And then for wisdom, and I think you're really good at this, and kudos for you on this one. But for wisdom, having the discipline to think before you react emotionally, that's a big one because then it allows you to ground yourself in your own priorities, in your own virtues before applying yourself to the outside world. And I think when you think about it that way, every decision you make during the day is a vote for the person that you want to become. And having that mindset and thinking about, I have, when I'm faced with a problem, I have two options. I can either, go through it or I can just shell up and not go past it. Well, you need to make a decision at that point. Am I that person who's going to face that challenge and move on? Or am I going to stop and am I going to just shell up and not get past that point? So I think having that internal dialogue of this is a vote for who I want to become in the future is very powerful to move past that resistance like we talked about. And a really good quote here is, and I don't know who it's from. I have to take a look at it, but it says, "You don't rise to the level of your goals; you fall to the level of your systems and habits." So if you continuously create better systems in your life and better habits, over time you're going to become that man who's more free, who's more in line with their virtues, and who's going for their goals. So I think it's really important to not just try and always rise up to your goals, but if you have the systems and the habits in place, it's more you're tapping more into your subconscious now versus like your conscience where this is where I'm trying to get to. You'll be more consistent and you'll be more disciplined over time if you're focusing on your systems and your habits. Oh, excuse me. Now, for the weekly challenge, it was a pretty good one last week, and I think it really it made me focus on my day-to-day actions. I know for you it was about your body, and just your mentality as well. For me, it was about the community and growing it, and just my other business as well, and how fast it was growing. And sometimes when you're always thinking ahead, oh, I need to get to this point, or it's not growing fast enough, you miss the whole process of building a community or building a business, which a lot of times is the funnest part. When you look back on it, you go, you know what, yeah, that was fun going through those challenges, going through those learnings. So for me last week, it was all about just focusing on what I could control that week, making sure that those day-to-day actions were meaningful. And, I could definitely tell you from the previous week to last week, it was a stark difference in my mentality as far as what I was doing on a daily basis. And I actually felt like I had agency. I had hope. I can actually move forward and put my best foot forward every single day. So I would definitely encourage you to do the same thing with whatever your goals are. Just focusing on those day-to-day actions, moving forward with those day-to-day actions. That's all you can really do. You can always focus in the future. I want to get to this point. I want to get to this point. Well, what are you doing today to get to that point? Right? After this meeting, what are we doing, right, to get to our goals? Are we just going to lay back and enjoy the Saturday? Some people might need to. You might need to rest, but other times you need to put the pedal down and get to work. So that's one of the things I want to do for this week for our challenge is I want us to pick one small daily habit. And it could be whatever it is, right? It could be waking up without snoozing your alarm, journaling more, doing a 5-minute daily meditation, or something physical, right? If you can't get to the gym, it's doing 50 push-ups every single day for the next 7 days. And again, that's more like casting your vote to be that person who you want to be, right? So I want us to think about that, and it's really about building identity-based habits. So it
Mhm.
reinforces, the quote, I'm a disciplined man, or I'm a wise man, or whatever the case is for yourself. You need to start building up those identity-based habits. So I know for myself, when I first started like working out, it was always, oh, okay, I got to go to the gym. I got to go to the gym. I got to go to the gym. As you do it over time, it becomes so ingrained in you that, for me, I am that person who goes to the gym at 6 a.m. in the morning. And once you can start turning those habits into identity-based habits, it's way easier to consistently repeat them because it's more ingrained in your subconscious where this is just who I am. I am that person, right? I'm that person that journals every morning. I'm that person who goes to the gym every morning. And what I notice now is if I don't say I'm too busy in the morning to journal or I'm too busy to go to the gym, I just feel off. I feel unproductive. I feel off like I didn't do myself a favor right away in the morning. So I would definitely encourage you to try and get to those identity-based habits where whoever that person is that you want to be, start doing those daily habits that would get you to that point. And that's going to be our challenge for this week. And I'll go ahead and post up in the community once we're done this. But I wanted to focus on consistency, not perfection. That's a big one. I know that you're probably a pretty good perfectionist. I know I am as well, where it needs to be absolutely perfect or it's a fail. But like as we talked about last meeting, right? It's all about that journey. It's about that process, and it's about consistency, right?
Mhm.
So I'd focus on consistency. We're going to pick one habit. We're going to commit to it this week for the next 7 days. I know for myself, I have not been reading lately as much as I would like to. So I'm going to be doing 10 pages a day. I got to choose a book out of my library. I got to choose a book, and I'm doing 10 pages a day. Because what I found is once I was starting to fuel my mind, whether it was in the morning or it was in the evening, with things that actually started challenging my beliefs or challenging my thought processes or just giving my mind more fuel, better fuel. Um, I thought about things differently. I thought about myself differently. So I want to get back to that habit. Do you have any idea kind of what you're thinking about for your weekly challenge?
Yeah, I got like a morning routine figured out,
Mhm.
and I think just disciplining myself to start my day off with that morning routine is going to be a big game changer, just to start the day off right and
Yeah,
have that daily habit. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
No, I think that's a great idea. Absolutely. I know for me that was my one of my biggest wins was having setting that morning routine up. And I do the same thing every single morning, every single day. Because it just sets me up as far as, journaling in the morning. I get my mind right. I know what I'm doing for the day. I know how I'm going to approach the day. Right. I do my morning workout. Okay, now I'm feeling invigorated. I feel strong. I feel productive. Like I did something. My day is now anchored for the rest of the day. It can go completely off the rails. It can go sideways, all kinds of challenges, all kinds of victories. At least I feel accomplished because I set up my intentions in the morning and I did what I said I was going to do. The rest of the day could be great, could be bad, but it's still to me a successful day. So I think that's a spot on challenge for sure for next week. And I'm looking forward to seeing how well it goes. And I wanted to leave with a quote from Epictetus. He says, No man is free who is not master of himself. I think that's really important. Discipline is choosing what we want now versus what we want most. And that's always that daily struggle that we're going to come into contact with, right? Thinking about what do I want right now? And usually what you want right now is not going to serve that future person that you want to be. So it's having that foresight and again, that why and that direction to go. This is something that I just want now. It doesn't really serve me in the future. So what do I want most? And thinking about that, um, yeah, that's pretty much it for the meeting. Before we go, Tristan, did you have any comments you want to make or?
Yeah, similar to that is
Hmm,
something I read the other day was like, make sure you prioritize your 5-year goals or your 5-year activities
hmm,
in the day and do them no like because if you wash the dishes, sweep the floor, make your bed, you're not going to actually change your life. But if you do the exercise or you put out that content or write a chapter of your book or whatever, over time that will change your life, right? So like make sure you prioritize those 5-year, 10-year activities over the daily activities that don't really do anything, the maintenance activities.
yeah,
Otherwise, you're just going to be in the same spot. And that's where most people are, right? Like they wake up, go to work, come home, watch TV, go to bed, like nothing changed. So you need to make those changing habits a priority.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I think it's so true, right? I think of it this way: we only have a certain amount of energy throughout the day, and it's consumed by our daily actions, our daily thoughts. And if you waste them on those trivial things, yeah, as far as having a clean house and all those things, those are good things to do. But like you said, prioritize the hard stuff first,
Hmm.
right? Okay, before I clean the house or before I make my bed or before I do whatever, I'm going to focus on what actually matters, what's going to move the needle forward. Once you get those done, yeah, okay, then clean the house, do the dishes, whatever the case may be. But I think you're so right. Prioritize those, 5-year goals and be mindful of your energy. I know that if I come home at the end of the day and I just focus on just cleaning the house first because it's a mess or whatever the case is, I don't have enough energy afterwards to then go, okay, I'm gonna get on the computer, I'm gonna make content, I'm gonna post on my website, whatever the case may be, right? So I've made it a habit now where once I come home from work, I just go right into, my secondary work, which is okay, get on the computer, do that, do those needle moving 5-year goals and then afterwards take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. And I've noticed a huge change from that. So I think that's an excellent point for sure. All right. Well, that's it for me. Do you have anything else before we go?
Nope, I'm all right.
All right, brother. Well, you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you later.
All right, take care.
Bye bye.